Hi, I'm Dan Patrick, and this is The Final Exam. Question from Neil. How do you get to be a sportscaster anyway? I think I could do that job. And that's the problem, Neil. You probably can't do the job, at least not now. And you'll see a lot of the great sportscasters, they make this job look really, really easy. Therefore, everybody wants to do it. Volunteer for jobs. You also have to have the ability to be able to write. How are you at ad-libbing? How are you on camera? How's your knowledge? Those are just some of the things that you need to have to be a good sportscaster. But good luck, Neil. Big Talk, Small Walk asks, thinking about starting a sports podcast, any advice? Well, Big Talk, I would say get a really good microphone. Also, what is your podcast about? What separates you from everybody else? Because a lot of people say, I'm going to do a sports podcast. You got to have direction, and you got to make sure what you're doing is something different than anybody else. Because you just talking sports on a podcast probably isn't going to be successful. But if you narrow it down and you find something that is your niche, then you got a chance to be successful. Spade Queen 2000 says, do sports anchors ever get over the sound of hating their own voice, or do they just never watch anything they've done? Spade Queen 2000, I love my voice. Question from Who Do You Think You Are? I Am asked, where do sports anchors come up with the catchphrases, like in Fuego? Out of boredom, really, because when you do highlights every single night, when I was at ESPN for 18 years, you have certain highlights where you go, these aren't very interesting games. Therefore, you might have en fuego, which means on fire, or you can't stop him, you can only hope to contain him. But all it is we were trying to have fun with one another while hopefully entertaining you. A real Will McElvoy asked, what happens when live news breaks on air? Are there just like people behind the camera waving their hands or something? No. If there's breaking news, chances are you have somebody who says, get on the set. Usually you'll have an earpiece, an IFB, and they'll give you some information. They break into programming and say, we have breaking news here. And then you give the information as much as you can, and you throw it back to, and now we resume Judge Judy. Colonel Umbus says, I wonder if sports broadcasters prepare chit-chat for if the game is a blowout. Yes, you do. You have stories that you can always go to. Most of your play-by-play and color guys have been together for a long time, so they can have a couple of stories that they probably talked about while having dinner. But yes, Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, when they would do games, they would always be ready, and just in case there was a blowout. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, all the great ones do that. Jim's Chin, 1979, says, there's no way sports broadcasters aren't biased. You can't tell me Kirk Herbstreit isn't rooting for Ohio State every game. Come on, for real. Well, I can't speak for Kirk Herbstreit. I can only tell you about me. And I grew up in Cincinnati. I was a Reds fan and a Bengals fan, but when I got to ESPN, I stopped rooting. All I cared was the story. It didn't matter if the Bengals lost the Super Bowl to the Rams. It was still a great story. The Reds probably aren't playing in a World Series anytime soon, but when they did, I didn't root for them, I rooted for the story. Sir Thinks a Lot asked, how do sports commentators avoid talking over each other? Like when LeBron James dunks, how do they decide who gets to yell, holy bleep? Well, you have the play-by-play guy who will then describe what LeBron is doing, and then you'll get the color analyst who gets to come in and say, holy bleep. That's the partnership that you have. When we do highlights on SportsCenter, one guy does that highlight, the other guy has his own highlight. You don't jump in and interject over somebody else unless you've scripted that. But it's a good question to ask, and I look forward to the next time when I can go, holy bleep, on national TV.